Hello and welcome to the last phase of our State Director onboarding training. Today we're going to be covering Action 4 items in the State Director Handbook. Again, you will notice that many Action 4 items require a higher level of planning and funding. Again, some states will never progress to Action 4 items in all 4 tracks, and that is perfectly fine. Now that the onboarding process is coming to a close, we will be having another meeting to determine whether or not there's any other areas that we need to focus on before moving on to this in-session planning for your state. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to open to slide 15 of our State Director Handbook. Action 4 in the area of prayer is to host additional prayer-related events with legislators. We've helped with, or states have done, a number of prayer-related events with legislators. We encourage state directors to consider either a private or public event to launch each session with prayer. Oftentimes, these are events hosted in the rotunda where legislators from both sides of the aisle and individuals from all branches of government are invited to participate. The program is legislators only and is very professional and official, with perhaps the state director giving the final call to action at the end. The public is invited to support their efforts, and these events can be larger. Again, many of the state events have been over 500 people, or they can be more of a private gathering. Some states have preferred to host these types of gatherings, say in the governor's private room or some other room in the Capitol. We'll want to leave that up to the chairs to decide. Legislative prayer breakfasts are another way to consistently bring legislators together, and or legislator pastor breakfasts. Again, these are something that could potentially happen weekly, monthly, quarterly. It's a means to bring together these individuals to help cultivate relationship and to break down the pseudo wall of separation of church and state. Obviously, there's many ways to promote prayer through events with legislators, faith leaders, and the public. We encourage you to consider these ideas as well as consider creative ideas to accomplish the same goals. Let's move to slide 18, legislator support. Action 4, monitor religious freedom resources. We encourage you to consider taking more time to learn the strategies of the anti-faith groups, as well as to intentionally become eyes and ears in your state. This will help you be even more effective in mobilizing prayer, as well as alerting your legislators as to national and state trends that are beginning to emerge as it relates to religious freedom. Also, you'll be even more equipped to discuss the reality of the fight for faith to allies in your state. Unfortunately, many people do not understand how close we are to losing the very freedoms that we love. So the more that we can communicate the challenges, the victories, and the strategies, the better. We'll move on to Faith Impact Opportunities and Toolkits. Action 4, host, coordinate a state strategic meeting. Some strategic meetings strategic state meetings are an effective way to bring together legislators and leaders, specifically in business, education, law, and policy. They come together for a few hours to discuss how to effectively push back against the anti-faith efforts in the state. The toolkits will be particularly helpful in providing the leaders turnkey resources when creating or considering how to create a culture of strategy in the state. The state director will be responsible for coordinating the details of these meetings, including working with the headquarters on the agenda and more. To clarify, these state strategic meetings are different than the recommended state director hosted state strategic conference calls or meetings in the Capitol that we've talked about previously. The state strategic conference calls, or those Capitol meetings, are really a means for leaders to meet on a regular basis, whereas the state strategic meetings with the CPCF would be potentially annually or essentially as needed. Building the Faith Impact Network, Action 4. Identify faith impact group opportunities and to help start a group. Faith impact groups, also known as FIGs, are meant to unite leaders in various spheres of influence at the local level. These groups are made up of people who are committed to prayer and action. Vision Chesapeake is a group of local leaders started by Congressman Forbes that meet on Monday mornings. and their goal is to help keep faith in Chesapeake, Virginia. We hope that you'll be discussing the potential impact of these groups when the opportunity arises, and encourage people to form these faith impact groups. Again, these are a means of coming together, of praying, of discussing any current issues that may be emerging in the region so that action can be taken. We have created a faith impact guide here for those who would like kind of a general idea of how these meetings could go or should go. And we welcome you to review those at your convenience. Communication, action 4. Communicate about the CPCF, NSC, APCN, engage with the NSC. The National Strategic Center can help in numerous ways, including helping to create a cultural strategy around a faith-related issue that you or someone that you know identifies in the state. Also, the goal is to help to develop an idea that a group or individual has. For instance, March for Jesus contacted us about helping flesh out the strategy and make it duplicatable. So after several meetings, we were able to provide a final product for them in the form of a toolkit that they could use when executing their event, as well as share with others who want to do a similar effort. So again, these are ideas that people have, but they just need a little bit more insight or help with actually fleshing out the fullness of the strategy. We're happy to help with that. We have no pride of ownership. Our goal is simply to help keep faith in America. So if anybody has any concerns about whether or not we would use their idea or what have you, please assure them that we would not do anything outside of them giving permission. But essentially, our goal really is to help them, and for them to have something that others can take and use as well. Funding and finance. The fundraising training should be done in the days ahead. In the meantime, if you have decided that you want to pursue a financial plan and are determining how you can create a financial or funding strategy, here's some funding sources that you may want to consider. I will mention that events and dinners are an easy way to help engage people and potentially raise some funds. If you have somebody that comes to you and says, how can I help? Consider asking them if they'd be willing to invite 10 of their friends to their home. They would host a dinner. You would come, you would present, the CPCF, the NSC, the mission and vision of the State Prayer Caucus to these individuals and encourage them to engage with you in some way. We have resources that you can hand out so that they can select how they want to join. But basically, these are a means for an easy way to get out the mission and vision to the movers and shakers in the area, or individuals who they think may be interested in helping to support your efforts. Also, some legislators, some states' chairmen have encouraged the members of the Prayer Caucus to donate, kind of a type of membership fee, but essentially it's a donation that's going towards the mission and vision of the State Prayer Caucus. So those funds can be used towards prayer breakfasts or events that they may want to see happen in the state. It's up to the chairman whether or not they want to implement that, but it is an idea of funds that could be raised for events. Also, I'll mention that the CPCF does offer some services at no cost or reduced cost to the State Prayer Caucus or caucus, the state director or caucus. We do help with some printing, some products, initial Prayer Caucus launch events, In God We Trust decals for any state caucus sponsored event, as well as In God We Trust posters. I'll just mention the Prayer Caucus launch events are typically events that take place once a Prayer Caucus has decided that they want to form. So it's a public announcement of the caucus. It's typically at the beginning of session. CPCF coordinates that event and invites members of the executive branch, legislative branch, judicial branch to participate or to attend. It is a legislator-only ceremony, and typically it takes a few months to plan. We do our best to reach out to like-minded citizens in the state as well, and many of the states have had 500 or more people in attendance. So again, just a great way to launch the session and to launch the caucus as a whole. If you are interested in potentially having the CPCF host a prayer caucus launch event, please let me know and we will determine whether it's something that we can do, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Also, I'll mention again that all of the information that's linked throughout the body of the handbook is available in the back of the handbook under the resources, presentations, and video section. So everything that we've discussed, everything that's linked, is all easily accessible in the back of the handbook. Once the consensus is that you are ready to be released into your role, we will discuss your in-session plan for 2020. That process will include reviewing the state faith assessment, as well as consider other important factors to help determine the best course of action in your state. The more that you can be thinking ahead and considering how to make the most of opportunities like Religious Freedom Day, which is on January 16th, or even the anniversary of the national motto being "In God We Trust," which is July 30th, or other relevant dates, the more potential for positive impact. The planning and preparation will prove to be necessary groundwork for your meetings with your prayer caucus chairs. Also, it's never too early to be considering an out-of-session strategy. Some of you have sessions that are 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. So much of the year will be more of an out-of-session strategy. So the more that you can be thinking ahead and trying to engage the legislators for that, the better. This concludes our onboarding training. We sincerely thank you for taking the time to go through the handbook and these videos, as well as the time dedicated to the individual meetings. We hope you're encouraged by the potential impact that you can make in your state, and that you do feel closer to being released into your role as state director. Thank you again, and we'll now open it up for questions.